students. The perfect tutor is here with a very interesting topic, International Human Rights Instrument. In the previous video, we looked at the Zambian Bill of Rights. What's the difference between these two? The Zambian Bill of Rights only applies to the people of Zambia, as its name states, Zambian Bill of Rights. Now, the International Human Rights Instrument or the International Bill of Rights applies to every person in the world. These are human rights which are recognized worldwide, recognized by everyone in the world. So talk about the treaty-based instruments and the optional protocols. Let us start. What is the International Bill of Rights? What is the International Bill of Rights? This is very simple. It only refers to three documents adopted or drafted by the United Nations, each proclaiming a list of fundamental rights. So we have three documents here. Each document has got a list of fundamental rights. What are these documents? The first one is common, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR. So this one was drafted by the United Nations. It has got a list of fundamental rights as well. Then, the second one is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR. This was adopted in 1996. The third one is the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, ICESCR. These are the three documents that make up the International Bill of Rights. So when you hear the word International Bill of Rights, simply refers to three documents, the UDHR, ICCPR, and ICESCR. But the ICCPR has got two optional protocols. So we'll learn what optional protocols are. Okay, so let us look at these documents one by one. But before we do that, I would like to show you a chart. Something like a chart to help you understand the system of the International Bill of Rights. Given the International Bill of Rights here, it follows the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was the first one to be adopted in 1948. In 1948, 10th December 1948. After this document was adopted, it has got a list of fundamental rights. Then we had the ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, as well as the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, this one here. So why are they on the same stage or on the same position? These two were adopted in the same year, 1996. These two documents were adopted in 1996. So these three are the ones that are referred to as the International Bill of Rights. The three documents, UDHR, ICCPR, and ICESCR. Apart from that, there are other instruments or documents that talk about human rights internationally. So we'll also talk about the specialized instruments, but not in this video, but in the part 2 of our video. So we'll talk about these which make up the International Bill of Rights all together then. So we start. Let us start with the most common one, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This one is very common. We learned about it in the previous video. So what is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? This is simply an intentionally recognized and agreed upon instrument. Intentionally recognized and agreed upon. Agreed upon, that means agreed upon by countries, which contain 30 articles. 30 articles through which individuals and government can work to deliver basic rights. So It's more like the Zambian Bill of Rights. It has got articles from 11 to 32. Even this one is the International Bill of Rights, of which we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights with 30 articles. You see that you've got work to master the articles. So this one has 30 articles ranging from 1 to 30. The UDHR was derived from the United Nations Charter, as we learned in the previous video. It was derived from the UN Charter. Then it was adopted by the United Nations on 10th December 1948. Place in Geneva. Now, what are the articles of the UDHR? What are the articles of the UDHR? This is very simple. Everyone, 1, is born in freedom, equality, and dignity. 2, has the freedom from discrimination. Article 3, has the right to life. So you see, some of the rights that are in the International Human Rights or in the International Bill of Rights are also in the Zambian Bill of Rights, because they are same rights. Article 4 has freedom from slavery. Article 5 has freedom from torture. Article 6 has the right to recognition before the law. 7 has the right to equality before the law. Here, recognition, that means you must be protected by the law of your country or your nation. Has the right to equality before the law, that means even if someone that committed a crime against you is of a high profile in society, or is a president, or is an MP, the law must take its course. The law should operate freely. Equality before the law. Has the right to access justice. Has freedom from arbitrary detention. Arbitrary detention, this is why they arrest you for no apparent reason. So you have the freedom from being arrested without a reason. Has the right to fair trial. Trial, we learned about this under legal system. This is why you go to court, you appear before the court. Article 11 has the right to be presumed. Listen to this one. Has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty by an impartial judge. You are always innocent until proven guilty by the courts of law. 12 has the right to privacy. 13 has freedom of movement. 14, right to asylum. 15, right to nationality. 16 has the right to marry and have family. You have the right to marry and have your own family. Article 17 has the right to own property. 18, freedom of religion or belief. You can be a Muslim, a Christian, or a Hindu. Has freedom of expression. Article 19. Freedom of assembly. Article 20. Article 21, the right to take part in public affairs. Article 22 has the right to social security. Article 23 has the right to work. 24, right to rest and leisure. 25, the right to adequate standard of living. 26, the right to education. 27, the right to participate in cultural life of the community. 28, the right to a free and fair world. 29, duty to the community. And 30, the rights which are inalienable. All the rights that you have are inalienable. They are inseparable. No one can take you or can take your rights away from you. No one can take them. That's what it means by inalienable. Those are the 30 articles of the UDHR. the 30 articles that talk about human rights. You can divide these. You can't master them at once, but there are those who can do so. But a simple way, you can divide the articles. You say, okay, today I'll memorize 1 to 5. The other day you put 1. Just write those articles on a piece of paper, then be moving with it. During lunchtime, you look at the paper, okay, article 1, write article, just like that. They'll get into your mind. When you are committed, you master the articles. When you are not, you can't. These things are very important. In the exam, a question might just come. Explain Article 29 of the UDHR. That's very important. So, apart from the UDHR, which was adopted in 1948 by the UN, we have the other 2 documents. Remember I said the International Bill of Rights is made up of 3 documents: the UDHR, the ICCPR, and the ICESCR. The ICESCR, the 3 documents. So I've talked about the UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So we now talk about the other 2 documents, the Treaty-Based Human Rights Instrument. So the UDHR is known as the Charter-Based Instrument. Then the other 2 are known as the Treaty-Based Human Rights Instruments. So these treaties, the ICCPR and the ICESCR, are legally binding documents. That means they are binding on the states that are party to them, the countries that have signed, that have ratified. There are countries which have ratified these instruments. What is to be a part of an instrument or a treaty? Being a party to a treaty simply means a country has either ratified or acceded to the treaty. The country has either ratified or acceded the treaty. That means to accept it. That, okay, as Zambia, we accept this treaty. We accept the rights which are, or the provisions which are in this instrument. That means the country has acceded the treaty. Both the ICCPR and the ICSCR were adopted in 1996. They were adopted in 1996. So now, the ICCPR has got optional protocols. It has got optional protocols. Now, what are optional protocols? An optional protocol is simply a provision attached to an international instrument, which is meant to offer more protection of the right in the treaty. Look at this. Meant to offer more protection of the rights in the treaty. So we have the treaty, which is here, the ICCPR, International Convention on the Civil and Political Rights. Now, there is another provision attached to this treaty or this instrument, which is provided to offer more protection of the rights that are in this instrument now. So, for the optional protocol, they are known as optional protocols because it's not mandatory that you should be ruled or you should accept this as a country. No, they are optional. Only for those countries which have signed them, which have accepted or ratified, are the ones which follow the optional protocols. So, let us look at the summary of the treaty-based instruments. The summary is simply some of the rights which are in these instruments. Remember, I'm talking about the rights of the UDHR. So even these treaty-based instruments, which were adopted in 1996, have got rights which they protect. For example, the International Convention on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights protects the right to work, the right to social security, the right to form and join trade unions, the right to participate in cultural life, and other rights. This is just a summary of the provisions. The summary of the provisions. This is very simple. Do not be confused by the abbreviations. Remember, when we were doing Introduction to Human Rights, we talked about the 3 generations, the 3 categories of human rights. Now look at this. The first one is saying International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. We talked about this during the Introduction to Human Rights, and you'll find rights like this. So in short, the Zambian Bill of Rights is derived from the International Bill of Rights. Simple. The ICCPR is simply the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. We talked about this as well. So now, as a treaty, it protects the right to life, the right to liberty and security, rights of the child, equality before the law, and political rights, etc., etc. Those are some of the rights which are in these treaties. So this one has got these rights, and this one has got these rights which are here. Remember, these are just documents. These are just documents, like the UDHR. Now, these were adopted in 1996. That is the only difference that is there. They are just documents that has got what? Human rights in them. Documents with human rights. Now, the ICCPR has got optional protocols. Optional means something not forced, but it is voluntary. You only take part if you want to do so. It's not forced. So the optional protocols to the ICCPR are 2 of them. There are 2. We have the first optional protocol and the second optional protocol, only 2. So the first one provides for an individual to complain on human rights violations contained in the ICCPR to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Look at this. We have human rights in the ICCPR here. Now, for the first optional protocol, it provides for an individual like me here or you to complain if at all your rights have been infringed or violated. Now, where do you complain? You complain to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. You can complain to this committee that your rights have been violated. So the first optional protocol provides for that. It was adopted in 1966, but came into force in 1976. So this one is not forced, it's not mandatory that everyone should complain to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. That can only happen if the country has ratified it, if the country is a party to the treaty or to the protocol. So Zambia is a party to the first option protocol. So you can complain to the United Nations Human Rights Committee if your rights have been violated. Zambia is a party to the first optional protocol. Apart from the first optional protocol, we have the second optional protocol. This one was adopted in 1989 and came into force in 1990. What is its aim? It aims at abolishing death penalty in countries that ratified it. It abolishes what? Death penalty Now, Zambia is not a state party to the second optional protocol. That's why we still have what? Death penalty in our country. Zambia is not a what? A state party. So the optional protocols are not mandatory. Countries can accept, countries can sign, countries can accede or not. Those are what we call optional protocols. But the good thing about them is that they offer more protection of their rights. For example, when we go to the UDHR or the ICCPR, there is right to life there. Right to what? Right to life. Right to life. Now, when you sign the second option protocol as a country, that means you are protecting the what? The right to life, because there will be no what? Death penalty in your country running. This is very important. This is very important. So some of the things were just summaries. Just summary. You are required to research more so that you know all your rights, and above all, so that you can remember everything in the exam. Thank you very much.